In your statement, you said that you and the FBI leadership team decided not to discuss the president's actions with Attorney General Sessions, even though he had not recused himself. What was it about the Attorney General's own interactions with the Russians or his behavior with regard to the investigation that would have led the entire leadership of the FBI to make this decision?
Our judgment, as I recall, was that he was very close to and inevitably going to recuse himself for a variety of reasons. We also were aware of facts that I can't discuss in an open setting that would make his continued engagement in a Russia-related investigation problematic.
Good morning and welcome to AM Joy. That exchange between Democratic Senator Ron Wyden and Jim Comey didn't seem like the most significant thing to come out of Comey's damning testimony about the events that led to his firing. But the announcement on Saturday that Attorney General Jeff Sessions will testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee this week puts that moment in a new light. Even more so given reports that in the closed-door hearing after Comey's public testimony, the former FBI director confirmed that intelligence suggests a possible third undisclosed meeting between Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak and then Senator Sessions in April of 2016. Sessions recused himself from the FBI's investigation into the 2016 election after it emerged that he met Kislyak twice last year, despite testifying that he had not had any contact with Russian officials. Sessions' recusal reportedly caused a lot of tension between him and his boss, Donald Trump, even reportedly leading to the Attorney General offering to resign. Now, this comes after a dramatic week in Washington, topped off by Trump's own public offer to testify under oath to tell his version of events surrounding Comey's firing. But with the Attorney General in the spotlight, the biggest questions now are what will Sessions say, and will Donald Trump stand by one of his earliest political allies? Joining me now is Ted Lieu, Democratic Congressman from California. So let's start with the question, Congressman, of whether or not you expect Sessions' testimony to be public, or do you think it is definitely going to happen at all?
I urge Sessions' testimony to be public. He canceled public hearings before the Senate, House, and Appropriations Committees. He is now going to testify in the Senate Intelligence Committee. That's scheduled to be closed. I urge that it be open.
And this morning, Dianne Feinstein was on CNN. Senator Dianne Feinstein was on CNN, and this was her comments about whether or not she expects that testimony to happen. There's an interesting wrinkle in it because she's questioning which committee actually has jurisdiction to talk to him at all. Take a listen.
He's going to testify on Tuesday before the Intelligence Committee. Is that going to happen, and is that going to be public?
Don't know whether it will happen, don't know whether it's going to be public, and I challenge the jurisdiction to some extent. I'm on both committees, as you know.
Judiciary and Intelligence.
And, yes, and I believe that the Judiciary Committee has the oversight responsibility for the Justice Department.
And so, Congressman, if there's now a question about which committee actually has jurisdiction over Sessions, he is obviously, oversight is provided by the Judiciary Committee. Do you think that the delay caused by those questions could mean that we won't hear from from Jeff Sessions?
It's possible. I think the most important point is not which committee he testifies in, but that it's open so the American people can see what he's saying. And let me just take a step back. I don't even know why he is still Attorney General. He lied before Congress in order to get confirmed. That's a perjury charge. He also lied on his security clearance forms about his Russian meetings. Those are false official statements. He should have resigned months ago.
And are you officially then calling for Sessions to resign?
Absolutely. I've been calling for him to resign for months. Kamala Harris has been calling for him to resign. Leader Pelosi has been calling for him to resign. He needs to step down. And
let's move on to his boss, to Donald Trump. He said quite boldly in his press conference on Thursday that he would 100% be willing to testify himself under oath about Jim Comey. Do you think that he should be subpoenaed and called to testify before Congress?
I do. So this morning, President Trump tweeted that James Comey was cowardly. I thought James Comey showed a lot of courage in testifying under oath before Congress in an open hearing. I urge the president to show that same courage and testify under oath before Congress in an open hearing.
And we're going to hopefully try to get that tweet up later because, yes, Donald Trump was up early this morning, as he loves to do, and tweeting directly about Jim Comey. In continuing to talk about Comey, do you feel that Donald Trump is actually building the case against himself? There's that tweet right there. I believe James Comey leaks will be far more prevalent than anyone ever thought possible. And then he puts in totally illegal question mark, very cowardly. That's a tweet you were just referring to. Sir, in your view, is that obstruction of justice? Because the question has been, are the sort of targeting of Jim Comey on Twitter, is that obstruction or maybe tampering with a witness?
If President Trump is trying to get James Comey to stop talking, then yes, that could be obstruction of justice. And keep in mind, these are not leaks. A private citizen can disclose unclassified conversations today, yesterday, tomorrow. James Comey, like other prior administration officials, can write an entire book about unclassified conversations he had with the president. These are not leaks.
Thank you very much, Congressman Ted Lieu. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Let's bring in my panel. Paul Butler, professor of law at Georgetown Law School. E.J. Dionne, Washington Post columnist and senior fellow at the Brookings Institution.
Thank you.
Jennifer Rubin, opinion writer at the Washington Post. And Caton Dawson, Republican strategist. Paul, I'm going to come right to you. You heard the congressman say Jeff Sessions lied to get confirmed, which he said is perjury in his view. And he also did not disclose on the forms he used to get a security clearance that he met with the Russians. And we now know, and this is cut one for my producers, that there were at least 3 meetings in April of 2016, in July of 2016, and in September of 2016, this third one that's been acknowledged by Jeff Sessions. In your view, has Jeff Sessions committed either perjury or a crime in terms of not disclosing his meetings?
Yes, he has. The irony is that Sessions is the most conservative pro-law enforcement attorney general in decades. He wants to bring back the failed war on drugs. He loves stop and frisk. And during the campaign, he says America needs to put all of its bad guys in jail. But that apparently does not apply to his own conduct. Look, I filled out security clearance forms to get a top secret clearance. There's no way that you forget that you have meetings with the Russians, and then to be asked about it in testimony, and now to say, well, there were 2, and now he remembers a 3rd, you wonder whether there's a 4th or 5th. So not only do we think about whether his conduct meets the rules about the law that you have to fully disclose, you can't intentionally withhold when you fill out your security clearance form, we have to ask whether this man is fit to be Attorney General. Does he invest in the office the confidence, the integrity in the administration of justice that the nation's highest law enforcement officer needs?
And I'll throw that question to you, Caton, because you have an Attorney General that's had to recuse on arguably the most important investigation in recent and modern history, if not in the last 20, 30 years of modern history, whether or not the Russians interfered with our elections. He's had to recuse from that because of his own contacts with the Russians. Is there any way that Jeff Sessions can continue as Attorney General, and how can Republicans justify it?
I certainly think he will survive being Attorney General. With Sessions reclusing himself, he was heavily involved in the campaign. I understand that. I'm not an attorney. I'm a political consultant. So at the end of the day, I think what you're going to find with Jeff Sessions is he's going to give you the answers. He is, just like the former panelist said, one of the most pro-law enforcement attorney generals we've seen in modern history. I think he's an honest man. I would comment to you, Joy, like we have on other shows, that these Russian diplomats must be the hardest working people in Washington. They seem to have met everybody. Whether the meetings constituted in basements or on street corners, I don't know. I think that's what we'll hear when we get the testimony, is the vein of what kind of meeting. Was this a hello, how are you? Was it a cocktail party? I don't know. If it was a structured meeting, then maybe Jeff Sessions will be in trouble. But he was a United States Senator first. So I don't think it's his responsibility in these casual settings, but that I understand is where they have met these people, these 2 ambassadors or diplomats. So I'm a reserved judgment, but I certainly don't think it's time for Jeff Sessions or the or the public to call for his head and resignation.
Well, it's certainly his responsibility to disclose them if he's asked directly about foreign meetings, if he's trying to become Attorney General and not just a senator. But I want to make sure that we also talk about Donald Trump himself, because he's the other sort of potential star witness. And as one column pointed out, he could actually get greater ratings than Jim Comey. That might be an additional inducement for him to testify. This question of whether or not he asked for a pledge of loyalty from Jim Comey. I want to play a couple of things first. Let's start with Donald Trump's denial that he, well, we don't actually have, I don't think, audio of Trump denying that he talked about loyalty. But when he was at that press conference, he said, oh, no, I think we actually do. This is Jonathan Karl. This is cut 3. And this is him denying that he asked Jim Comey for a pledge of loyalty. Let's take a listen.
And did he ask for a pledge of loyalty from you? That's another thing he said.
No, he did not.
So he said those things under oath. Would you be willing to speak under oath to give your version of those events?
100%. I didn't say under oath. I hardly know the man. I'm not going to say, I want you to pledge allegiance. Who would do that? Who would ask a man to pledge allegiance under oath? I mean, think of it. I hardly know the man.
Well, EJ, it turns out who would ask a man for a pledge of allegiance? It turns out it's Donald Trump. I want to play for you 1992, and this was a great find by a Twitter citizen about Donald Trump in 1992 on the Charlie Rose Show, talking about his views on loyalty. Take a listen.
If given the opportunity, I will get even with some people that were disloyal to me. I mean, I had a group of people that were disloyal.
But how do you define disloyalty?
They didn't come to my aid.
Well, what did they do? They turned their back on you?
No, but they didn't do small things that would have helped. They didn't do large things.
Give me one example.
EJ, the thing that's fascinating about that is he says what he defines disloyalty as is not coming to his aid, not doing small things that would have helped. At least if you believe Jim Comey's really extensive pre-testimony proffer, Donald Trump was essentially asking him to do things that would help him out politically, that he was asking potentially Mike Rogers and Dan Coats to do things that would help out a little bit. Does that to you sort of suggest that Donald Trump is of the character that he would demand loyalty from an FBI director?
Absolutely. I mean, when somebody quotes somebody else, you listen and say, does that sound like the person they're quoting? The person Jim Comey quoted sounded like Donald Trump. That's number one. Number two, we have a history here. No matter how angry Democrats were at Comey about Clinton, no matter how angry Republicans were at him during the Bush years, everybody sees Jim Comey as somebody who tells the truth. On the other side, you have these denials from Donald Trump, and we have a history there, too. It's a history, number one, of not telling the truth, of outright lying at times, but number two, this promise to go under oath. He regularly says, oh, I will do that in the future, or in 3 weeks, I will produce this proof. And he never does it. That's why he should be challenged as soon as possible. Given a venue, say, Mr. President, you want to go under oath to deny what Comey said? Here's your chance. Go to it. And then let's see what he does.
Yeah, and Jennifer, you know, to DJ's point about Trump's history in terms of his truthfulness and veracity, there is a Washington Post article that talked about a 2007 lawsuit that he filed against a reporter who wrote a story he didn't like. He sued that reporter, accusing him of being reckless and dishonest in a book that raised questions about Trump's net worth. The lawyers confronted the mogul with his past statements and with his company's internal documents, which often showed those statements had been incorrect or invented. And they caught him 30 times lying in those depositions. Your thoughts, Jennifer?
He is a liar. I think that came through loud and clear from Mr. Comey. And as the other guests have said, it's not just Comey who's going to confirm that. He's going to have had similar conversations asking, for example, to drop or let Flynn go. Trump has also denied that sort of conversation. So I think this is probably the easiest man to impeach because he not only has a record, but his lies are so, you know, frankly absurd. I do want to add something about Jeff Sessions, though. There are two things that he did during this investigation that in and of themselves deserve his resignation. One is he recused himself. He came back into an investigation that he said he wouldn't touch when he fired or helped to fire Jim Comey. That was clearly covered by his recusal, and it was totally inappropriate. And the next is that he failed to intervene, as Comey, in essence, asked him to do when he was asked, don't leave me in a room with that man. So he failed in his fundamental duty to protect the FBI director, to ensure that the president wasn't behaving in improper and perhaps illegal ways. I have never seen a record in this short of time of a attorney general who's been this derelict.
And, you know, then, Paul Butler, then I would turn to you and say that if, in fact, we, let's say, stipulate that Jeff Sessions did something wrong, you know, maybe even illegal in terms of perjury or in terms of lying on his security forms, who would enforce that? He's the Attorney General.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, this could come under the purview of Bob Mueller and the special counsel. But right now, the Senate Intelligence Committee has the opportunity to ask some questions. He has to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Senate, don't give him the pass, Sessions the pass that you gave the intelligence guys last week when they said they didn't want to answer questions because they didn't feel it wasn't appropriate. It was appropriate. I can't imagine a witness in another hearing saying, I don't want to answer questions because I'm in my feelings. Give me a break. Yeah. He would be held in contempt. If Sessions doesn't answer the questions, he should also be held in contempt.
Paul Butler, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. The rest of the panel is going to be back later in the show, and Paul will definitely have you back. This is not ending anytime soon. And up next, Donald Trump's dangerous dance with Qatar. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.